Hey everybody, I'm Watch Me Open. Welcome to Behind the Pencil. I am joined today by artist Andrei Ausch. Welcome, thank you, or
Hi,
Dre, as he's known in the biz. Welcome, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
thanks for having me.
Great. Um, Dre
Be-
is
before we dive in, it just occurred to me that you're not wearing a tux.
no,
I was
it's not.
promised a tux.
Yeah, well, it's game show only. This is casual, polished casual, contemporary. Watch Me Open. Uh,
Right.
Not your Wednesday comic tea, not your Friday night festivity, but this is your Sunday afternoon chill, watch me open interview program. Uh, so Dre, you are an artist. You work on trading cards.
Hmm.
You're a sketch card artist. You do other. You work on other formats, but that's where you're known. That's where you kind of made your name for yourself. You've been on a bunch of different sets and a bunch more to come. And the first one was 2017 Marvel premiere,
Yep.
correct? And then you did a bunch of the movie tie-in sets, Black Panther, Infinity War, and your work. I've known you for almost as long as I've been back in the hobby collecting, and we talk pretty regularly. Uh, but I love your work. I still don't own. I did own a Dre, and I moved it because I'm neurotic about certain whatever. That's neither here nor there. I'm a big fan of your work. That's why you're here. That's why you're one of the first guests on this show. And it's not just our relationship. Like I'm an actual fan, and I hope you know that. So thank you for being here. We'll get right into it. I'm curious. How old were you when you started drawing?
Well, I drew. I started drawing when I was really young, and I was really into it as a kid. Went to school for arts. Went to high school in a fine arts program, and then kind of dwindled a lot of it because it didn't make sense to me at the time. So, kind of changed gears in college and went more into design and things like that. And then I
Right.
really didn't. I was still kind of like dabbling and doodling on when I had time, but then at one point I just stopped just because I got busy or prioritized my life differently.
Right.
It
Yeah,
was
we'll get into that. But so all the way from childhood, pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah, from childhood all the way till I finished high school. So till I
Okay.
was 19,
Um,
actively
so you
drawing
were
stuff.
born in Romania.
Mm-hmm.
You moved to Israel when you're 8. You lived there for 3 years,
But
5 years.
letters.
Okay, 5 years. Uh, Stat boy. I'll have your next stat boy. Um, and then you moved to Canada.
Yep.
So you're 13 when you moved to Canada. My question is, culturally and as far as what you have access to, it's different. Most of the people that watch, we live in America or North America, and we have a different level of content and fiction available to us, whether it's television or books or media. What was your exposure like, in Romania and then even in Israel? Because I imagine it's a different experience as far as what you had access to and what kind of things you were into.
Yeah, I mean, Romania and I left when I was 7 or 8. I can't remember, it was before or after my birthday. But little kid, you don't really have access to anything that because it was still a communist country at the time. So you don't really have any access to much kind of Western pop culture, if you
Right.
will.
Because me, like, you're talking about 8-year old me, like I had comic books, I even had trading cards and cartoons, and you didn't have that. So that must have been a different experience in terms of how long you've had exposure to these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have Bambi and Snow White and kind of the more wholesome, censored old Disney stuff, but no exposure to anything like Marvel, DC, Star Wars, any of that stuff. But again, I was also very young, so
Right.
you know, um, there are
Did that,
some.
did that change a little bit when you moved to Israel? Were there more
Yeah,
things that you were
yeah,
exposed to?
absolutely, because all of a sudden your eyes get open to like 100 TV channels and all the pop culture stuff. And, cartoons on a regular basis. So then it was just kind of, a revelation of all this other type of content that you can um, absorb. They just wasn't exposed to before. But again, it was as a very young age. I can imagine it would be different if that change would have happened when I was like in my teens and more aware of stuff.
For sure.
So
So by the time you came to, Canada and North America, which is, similar access, what kind of things were you into? What were your, interests as far as, whether it's fiction or pop culture?
yeah, I mean, just look at the age and the timing. GI Joe was popular. Transformers, Ninja Turtles were huge at that point, right? This is like 92, 93. Um, so I was really into that stuff. I wasn't really exposed to comics or comic culture in any way. I think I was just cleaning out some stuff the other week and I found an old box of comics. And I think I actually found my first comic, which is an old Superman, which I bought at the Tel Aviv airport in Israel. Still has like the the price tag on it because they just stuck the stickers right on top.
Right.
And that's got to be the first comic book I ever got, and it was just like at the newsstand there. And I even looked at it now, like I don't know what made me buy it or pick it up or get my grandma to pick it up or something. Nothing special about it. But then when when we came to Canada, I actually remember the first time I saw a trading card, which is a comic, it's the little convenience store beside where we left, and I have it. I have like I found it when I was going through these boxes. It's one of the I think it's X Force or X Factor, one of the
Okay.
Executioner songs, saga issues, and those all came with cards because they were
Yeah.
probably with a card. And I remember, and I said this probably somewhere in another interview, but um, my mom said, "Okay," I said, "Can I get a comic?" And she said, "Yeah, you can just get one." Right. So then I was going through all of them, and I saw this one had a comic and a card. So I was like, okay, if I want to get one, I'm gonna get this one because there's
Yeah.
there's more value there.
Good for your money.
Yeah. And that was really the first time I was really exposed to X-Men because this is before the animated series got released. I think that was maybe like 6 months later that summer. This was the first time I was exposed to it. And it was a whole different art style and genre than that one Superman comic that really I've never really liked. And then after that, like pretty much like every week, I go to that little store. Like can't remember the lady's name, a little old nice Korean lady, and they had a little rack with some books on it. And every week, I start picking up a book.
So was there a particular one that you like ended up following in that?
And then not at that point. I was just kind of looking at which one looked cool, right? So it did end up being a lot of the X-Men stuff because for some reason I think they just got a lot of those.
Right.
Um, but I like if you've ever read the Executioner's Song Saga or any of the, I mean, I'm sure you have any of the X-Men arcs, you pick up like a volume in the middle and you've never been exposed to any of those characters or that mythology, you have no idea what's going on. You just
Yeah.
look at the pretty pictures, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
that's what it was. It's like, okay, wall looks cool,
Yeah.
right?
If you get lucky on the top of the cover, it says, one of seven, and then
Yeah,
you gotta have some frame of reference, for where you're at, and,
yeah,
and you still don't know who these people are or why this joke is funny. This inside joke between these two characters that kind of
yeah. Not
known each other
none of it
for
made
years.
sense,
Right.
but the art was cool, and that was really kind of what attracted me to it.
So, at what point did the thought occur to you, or did you have the notion that like not only A, I could sell my art, but B, like someone will pay for it?
Well, that was until I guess more in high school.
Okay.
So, which I guess would have been like a year later, 2 years later, kind of deciding kind of which path you want to go. And I decided I want to go down the fine arts path. So I had to audition for an art school here. Um, so I had to go through the audition process. And if you get accepted into the program, it's, at that time, high school in Canada was 5 years because the last generation to the 5 year instead of the 4 year. I think so it was grade 13. So it was basically you're going to go down this fine art path, and then half your education, half the courses are all going to be art related, whether it's painting, sculpting, life drawing, blah blah blah, right?
Right.
So I said, okay, I think I want to go into architecture, which is kind of a creative thing because my aunt is an architect at the time. Um, so they said, okay, in order to follow that path, you got to go into an arts program and hone those skills. So you can go into architectural program in university or college or whatever you want to do. So then got into there, started that, and realized that I'm not going to be an architect. I don't want to do that. So then, probably grade 10, I said, I think I want to go into animation. And part of it had to do because of the exposure to comic books, which got a lot more elaborate over the years. Mainly, and now I'm bouncing back in time because of Masterpieces 92 or 93, depending on who you ask. The OG Juiceco set,
Right.
which just like, right? Um, so yeah, that was grade 10. I said, I'm going to go into animation and, kind of what's the career path and education path in order to get there, where you need to go to school, what kind of skill sets you need to build to get accepted and have a potential career in that. And it is heavily on art and life drawing, basic fundamentals and stuff like that. So that was the path for a long time. And that was really where I was going to go. But then as I got older and it came time to, go to college, I said, this isn't for me. I don't have the attention span. I mean, I did some courses. I did, I can't remember which ones it were now, like the intermediary first level animation courses at a college level. But I was like, I do not have the attention span for this. Like I even did, I did a co-op or an internship in high school in either grade 12 or grade 13. I can't remember when. So I was like 17, 18 with a small animation studio in Toronto called Lightbox Studios, which was the small studio that did the demo reel for Batman the Animated Series to get when they pitched it to Warner Brothers for licensing.
Wow.
So they did that first. It's essentially the Batman the Animated Series intro, like the title sequence, but it was extended. So I think the title sequence is like 28 seconds or 20 seconds. The full extended version is about a minute. And it doesn't have the music because the music came in later.
Oh my gosh, the music makes it. It's so Burton.
Yeah, I mean that came in later. That was part of the post-production part, but it was the exact same sequence. And if you ever watch the Batman the Animated Series introduction, it's a lot more painterly, less cell shaded. Like even that iconic shot when I think it's at the beginning or the end of the sequence now, where Batman's on the building and the lightning strikes behind him. All the shadows are blended. Everything's got a gradient to it, and that was hand painted on the cells at the time. And this little studio, I did a little internship there, and they kind of taught me the fundamentals. Did a animation demo reel, which I have the VHS somewhere here, and ended up being like, can't remember. It was definitely a 360 of Theodore from the Chipmunks.
Okay.
With just the head spinning.
Yeah.
And a squash and stretch exercise, which is classical animation thing where you see like Bugs Bunny as he's walking, his body squashing and stretching.
Yeah.
Which is again a fundamental exercise you do it with just a sandbag. So you animate a sandbag squishing. So it was like that. It was like a 40-second demo reel, which I used for my application to Sheridan College, which is the animation school in Canada. It's one of the most renowned ones in the world. But as I took more course, I'm like, I do not have the attention span for this. I can't sit in front of a light table for 8 hours a day and just trace, flip. So, like, screw it. Let's go to graphic design.
Yeah. So, gosh, lost my train.
I know we jumped all over the place there.
Yeah. You got me thinking about Batman now, and it was such a great show. So, I mean, we're leading up to it. One of the things that most people don't know about you, or at least they don't like put all of it together, is that in 2005, you like stepped away from art.
To high school and said, okay, forget art. Let's go into graphic design. So I went to a program at Seneca College here called Digital Media Arts, which was considered it's like 99 2000 is the fundamentals of computer graphics. It was just the early age of the internet, the early age of Photoshop, Illustrator, and so on. So this course or this diploma, can't remember what degree, whatever it is, basically let you dabble in all aspects of digital imaging. So photo manipulation, video editing, audio editing, very basic web design because that's 22 years ago, and 3D modeling. So that was really interesting and very cool because in the first year they really kind of they kind of force you to test everything out, like test the waters and all the different technologies. And then the second year you got to really focus. Did you want to go more into the graphic design component? Did you want to go more into video? Did you want to go more into animation, more into audio, whatever it was? So I went into the graphic design aspect of it. And then, that was great. Did well, really enjoyed that educational aspect. But then I graduated and I was like, okay, well, now what? Right now you got to go get a job because you got to get paid. So I applied for some graphic design positions, and I got some offers, but they weren't very appealing. And one of the opportunities I came across was a teaching opportunity at a private college to basically teach the software. It was a Photoshop, Illustrator, a couple of other ones. Some of them that got, they no longer exist. But so I took that teaching job, and part of that teaching gig gave me an opportunity to do some online courses with some of the partners of the college I was working with, one of which was Harvard Business School. So I got the opportunity to do a couple of virtual certificates with Harvard Business School. So I think that was 2005 or 2004. So at that time, I was working full time. It was great. Having a very active social life. Got into cars heavily at that point. Spent a lot of time modding my car and doing stupid things with cars. And I slowly started doing less and less creative stuff. And then at one point during my teaching run, I decided that as much fun as it is teaching people how to use software, I really kind of want to use it to get a little bit of a creative outlet. So me and a friend of mine started a side business for doing design work. We're doing like business cards and letterheads, logo design.
Drayden.
Yeah, Drayden. Then it was Drayden Business Solutions. It was just a general partnership, and we started doing that. And then that started picking up, and it was right at the time where web started getting popular. People really started understanding that, hey, you need a website. There's potential there. It's the future. So as we started getting busier, kind of the side gig became really a full-time thing. Quit the teaching gig and just started focusing on that all the time. So when you're trying to build your own business, you kind of have to work at it all the time.
Right.
So we're working 7 days a week, every single day in the office, trying to sell stuff, trying to, production things, getting vendors, all kinds of stuff. So really kind of started running out of time to do anything else. And I had to kind of pick, how do I want to spend my off time, and drawing and painting kind of fell off.
Yeah. And I mean, it fell off for a considerable period of time.
Yeah.
I mean,
10 years, man.
10 years. And so that's not like taking a break. And so I think part of what makes your story so unique is that like the average person wouldn't walk away from something for that long period of time and then go back to it and be as successful as you have been, after that much time in between. You could have whatever opinion you want on that, but I'm telling you that the average person wouldn't have that same experience. Did you know in your mind that you might come back to it one day?
No. So the only reason I came back to it is because I was working like 7 days a week. I was like,
Right.
way too much time in front of the computer, in front of the screen,
Right.
doing whatever, writing code, reports, spreadsheets.
And it's a lot of sitting in front of a computer, staring at a screen.
Yeah, and it really was with no real purpose except of do something different and
Right.
unplug. That's really the only.
That's what's so crazy is because it goes from that where it's just a break, right? It's just do something different, kind of get centered, balance myself, step away, and then almost overnight it feels like it goes to Dre Studios.
So,
That I mean that's the
yeah,
appearance, right? I know that's
yeah.
not the story, but like that's the appearance, and so like how does it go from A to B?
Um, let's go from A to B. Like really, I don't remember the exact timeline, but I think it was like if you go back in my Instagram as to when I did my first post, that's kind of when I started getting. That's a little bit after I started getting back into doing it.
Right.
And I'm drawing and doodling, and I'm starting going on YouTube and kind of trying to watch tutorials and lessons as to like try to warm up those muscles, that muscle memory from back when I was in school, as when I learned how to do this stuff, and kind of what new techniques and stuff are out there, and like being detached from it for 10 years. So then I was like, okay, people are posting this stuff on Instagram. There's there's a community of artists, and they had no purpose or sense of like, okay, I want to get people to hire me to do or commissions or anything like that. It was just, this is really where there's a community for this stuff, and you can talk to people and not talk about marketing, not talk about other stuff. It's just a different outlet, right? So that's why I did the Instagram thing and started posting on Instagram. And it wasn't really until, and honestly, if I look at my calendar, I can pick the exact day. It wasn't really until I got an email from Upper Deck, not an email, a DM from Upper Deck on
Right.
Instagram saying, we're doing a set. So some point in 16 or 17, would you like
Yeah.
to be on it? And really at that point, I've had very little knowledge of sketch cards. I've seen it because of Instagram and kind of the things I was following, kind of got some exposures to what it was, but I had no clue.
So the other thing that's very crazy about that is like you said, it's early 2017, late 2016, somewhere around there, and your public portfolio is like 10% Marvel
Yeah,
at that point. And
yeah,
then you get this message from Zach Brzdeka. So Zach Brzdeka at the time, he's the artist relations coordinator for Upper Deck
yeah. I
for
think it was Zach.
for people watching.
Yeah,
He's obviously taken on a larger role now. He's been in Upper Deck for some time, and you text and drive, you must swerve off the road and crash into the guardrail. How did you piece that together in your head? Like there has to be this idea. Like, are you sure you want me?
no, I was like, cool. I
And I
don't know
mean,
what I'm doing.
like
I
like
had no idea like what it was. Like,
right, based on what your portfolio looked like, and that there wasn't a lot of Marvel there. It just seems like very fortunate that Upper Deck would reach out and kind of gauge your interest, and then you would take it and run with it. Like it couldn't have been a sure thing on their end that you were going to be able to deliver what they wanted.
yeah, no, I understand that. But like I said, I didn't really give it any thought. Like honestly, anybody could have reached out at that point and said, "You want to do sketch card?" And I'd be like, "Yes, please."
You collect the comics, you had exposure to trading cards as a kid, but since you've been working, for Marvel through Upper Deck, how has your exposure changed to the property? How has it evolved?
I mean, obviously being involved in the various communities, Facebook and Instagram, whatever, where people talk about this, you get a lot more exposure to the product, understanding what characters people like, what kind of styles, what kind of style of art people like, what kind of, and you mentioned in the background before, like, what stock is perceived to be higher quality just based on that. So I think I have a better understanding of the business practices of the sketch or the card collecting world. But as to the creative behind it, I don't know, or like the what drives the collective behind it, I don't know. As I said, I'm really not collecting much of anything.
Right, but I mean, in terms of the fiction, because obviously you're around more characters, you're being asked to draw characters you might not have known. So how has that grown? And in terms of like, I know more about different characters, or I've taken an interest in more different things.
Well, you can't avoid it, right? Especially, I remember when Premiere came in, the first Premiere came in, and I had no idea what to expect, what it was going to be, and the cards came in, and they were like 100-point or 130-point, like little bricks of paper, and then I'm looking at them and like, okay, these are predefined characters. I don't know who Rocket Raccoon was. So I got to look up this raccoon, and a lot of the characters that I didn't know what they were. So kind of by necessity, you have to look them up, and thankfully there's Google, so you can just and see what it is.
Right.
And you kind of discover characters by doing that. But like I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole of starting the reading thing because I know what's going to happen. That's all I'm going to do. So you get exposed to characters, you get exposed to the different variations of the characters, some things that you wouldn't have known before, and like it's cool, and I get a kick out of it, but I'm not actively trying to dig in deeper.
Right. So I'm going to talk about what everybody who's a fan of you wants to talk about. This is the elephant in the room.
Squirrel Girl?
uh,
Oh, Venom, yeah.
so we're going to talk about Venom.
That's not Venom.
Well, I mean, that looks like venomized Black Bolt to me.
No, that's a variant of Black Bolt.
Oh, well, he looks venomized with
Yeah.
the teeth or whatever. Either way, this is these are your venoms and different things that you've venomized. So somewhere along the way, you got this venom bug, let's call it. When did that start? What started it?
I always liked Venom. I always liked the aesthetic of Venom. Um, I can't say I've been an avid Spider-Man reader at any point. Like even when I was collecting, I was always big into the X-Men. Um, so I was never really too familiar with the mythology of the character, but I really like the aesthetic. And another thing, and I mentioned this before, is the reason why I like drawing Venom is because he's so erratic and so chaotic that it's actually easier to draw. If that makes sense. As long as you get the basic look of Venom down, it
Okay.
doesn't matter if one arm's bigger or one arm's smaller.
Right.
The muscles don't make sense because just the
It
symbiote.
plays.
It plays. You can go really messy. You can go really clean. You can go with realistic proportions if you want, or you can go crazy like giant neck muscles and a skeleton that doesn't make sense. And it's just really one of those characters that as long as it looks cool, it's fine. Like you can't do that with like an Emma Frost or Jean Grey because
Right.
if her arm is too long, her arm's too long, and if she's cross-eyed, she's cross-eyed. Venom can't be cross-eyed because he doesn't have eyes, right? And the eyes, the patterns don't need to be the same.
And what's funny that you bring that up is it's so woven into the fiction of Venom. I remember there was the Dark Avengers storyline, and at the time, Mac Gargan, Scorpion, had the Venom symbiote. He was the host for Venom, and Norman Osborn was the leader of the Dark Avengers, and they intended for Venom to play the role of Spider-Man in the Dark Avengers. But in order to do that, in order to look like him, Norman had to design a pill that would teach the symbiote to restrain itself so that he could actually like look like Black Suit Spider-Man. Because without it, he couldn't will it. Like because it's all over the place. It always wants to be moving and pulsing and want to do this thing on its own. I never thought about it like that until you pointed it out that's not just his aesthetic. It's his nature, and it's known and it's part of his lore, and it's something that's really cool. And to see that paralleled and mirrored in his aesthetic, that it's like it's all the way through his the character's identity, which is really cool. You do this thing that has become trendy now. Not that that's why you do it, but what was the first character that you saw venomized? Obviously, other than Venom or Spider-Man, that you said, oh my gosh, this is a thing. People, this is so cool.
I think it was the Hulk.
The Hulk.
It must have been a venomized Hulk.
Yeah.
It's like this just looks savage, right? Like, and I don't know if it was official art or fan art or something.
Right.
But, yeah, I saw venomized Hulk, and I was like, that is pretty cool. Like, you could really have the symbiote take over anybody. And you could follow the mythos of the symbiote bonds with a host and takes on their uh, aspects of their personality, and that's kind of how it evolves. Or you can just say, hey, Venom is this type of symbiote, and he's going to take over something and basically wrap around them, and you get the tongue and the original physique or aesthetic of the character with a symbiote around it. There's two ways of kind of like really dealing with it.
Do you remember what the first character you venomized was?
It might have been that Venomized. No, because that Venomized Gambit was after Masterpieces. Because I really didn't go deep into Venom, I think, till MM20.
Okay.
I've always done Venom on I think every set, but yeah, MM20. I think 10% of my cards are some sort of Venom variant, if not more. Um, so there's a Venomized Hulk there, I think, and then I did that Venomized Gambit, which Rusty has, just a headshot.
Yeah.
And after that, it's just like I don't know. Like at one point, almost every commission request was Venom, Venom, Venom. Can you venomize a character? Like that Thanos that you showed, I think the conversation started as like, who can you venomize? And I said, who do you
Yeah.
want me to venomize? Right? Like, oh, wrap a symbiote on anything.
So
Right?
there's no character that's off limits. If
No
somebody's
off
out there
limit,
looking
no.
for it,
Yeah,
you're
as
gonna
long as it's
tackle it.
within guidelines, I'll wrap the symbiote on it. Okay.
Yeah, that's
You
awesome.
got some Rick and Morty cards? You want the pickle with a symbiote? Send them over.
Oh man, that's a great idea. Somebody's watching this right now and they're thinking to themselves, I need a Dre venomized pickle Rick.
Pickle Rick, that's the one. Yeah.
I guess we can switch over to more of the technical side, which some people actually have access to, and we'll talk about later. You do these really cool live drawings. We asked you, like in a pre-interview, about any specific tools or instruments you used, and when we asked about brushes, you said that you just like the cheap ones because you don't want to have to worry about cleaning them.
Yeah.
So we can't. I want to talk about paint though and color because you use a few different types of paint. You use acrylic, Liquitex, and they all have different pigment densities, which means
Yeah.
like a lower pigment density need more layers. And I'm not saying that for you. I'm saying that for them watching. Can you talk about the thought process? When you're getting to the color phase of how many layers do I want to do with this piece? Like what kind of goes into it? Is it just kind of like an intuition, a feeling?
Yeah. So it is, there's an intuition to it. And I use almost exclusively acrylics and different brands of acrylic paint. And like I said, the Liquitex, which has two level or three levels, got kind of the entry level stuff. It's got a mid level and it's got a premium level. And the quality of the paint, the thickness of the paint, the pigment of the paint is going to vary as well as the price point. Like your basic Liquitech Basics, which is your entry level stuff, you can grab for like $5 for like a big thing like this, and it'll last you a long time. But it's not as pigmented and it doesn't get the coverage that you would get from their heavy body paints, which are going to be like $20 for a smaller tube. And then the craft paint, which is the stuff that it's really dollar store paint from a company called Deco Art, which also makes some mid-range products as well. You can get like at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever. But the reason I like them is because they're really not very pigmented and they're very, very fluid. So it kind of cuts out some of the process if you were using higher end paints and using acrylics the way I use them, which is more of a watercolor technique. They just build out the layers and eventually ends up with what it is. It's not really the way acrylics are meant to be used. They're meant to be put on a little bit thicker and you're supposed to blend colors into colors. But what I do is I water down the paint and just light glazes until I just build up the value or the saturation that I like. Whether it's 2 layers or 20 layers, it's really going to vary on what I'm drawing and like kind of what I want it to look like. A lot of the times I don't have a proper vision in my head of exactly what I want it to look like. So I'll just keep on adding layers till I get there. That's why
Um,
it takes me forever to do some things.
and in terms of the colors, because someone like me, as I'll say, I've already said it, and I'll say it probably every episode. I'm not artistically inclined. I don't speak that language. I know I don't see things that way. The way colors are used in art, the way different colors blend, right? Like it's not something that a normal person thinks about. So like, how much of that is practice, and how much of that is something that had to be like formally learned? That these colors combine to do this, and if you want to do this you should really add that. And someone like me, you wouldn't think that you would arrive to this color by starting with this one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean that's really a learned skill that you can read a book or take courses on, or just learn it by trial and error. Just color theory. I mean, every like elementary level kid's gonna go know that if you mix blue and yellow, you're gonna get green,
Right.
right? And that's all it is. But besides, the fundamental colors, you can go with the three basic colors, but you can expand that color wheel. And the more you expand your knowledge of the color wheel, the more you'll understand which hues and which specific saturations of colors mix will give you a specific look. Right.
So
So it's just
for
trial and
you,
error.
was it more trial and error, or more, or a little bit formally learning that
It's
was
a mix.
the
It's a mixture of both. I mean, I'll tell you, like when I first started getting back into drawing, it was really drawing. And if you look at my older IG stuff, for the most part, it's red pencil or blue pencil. It was just drawing stuff. It wasn't really coloring or painting. It was maybe the odd thing here and there. It wasn't until the whole upper deck thing where the requirement was to have full color, where I said, okay, I need to start dabbling with colors. And I tried markers, and I tried watercolor, and I tried pencil, like colored pencils. Um, and I didn't try oil. I tried gouache, and I tried acrylic, and just kind of deciding which medium I really want to focus on. I had used all of them before in school, back a long time ago, right?
right.
But I just got, okay, which one do I really want to focus on? Because um, I was rusty, or I felt I was rusty with it. So it's like, okay, pick a medium and really get super comfortable with it. And for some, like I decided with acrylic, and that's primarily because of looking at some of the artists that I always liked, like Jusko, Hildebrandt, Adi Granov, like a ton of the more sci-fi penry guys. It's like, okay, this is the medium that they use, so okay, I'm going to use the same thing. And then what I did is when I said, okay, I'm going to start using acrylic, I went and I bought like a set of 48 different colors, different paint, like 7 shades of blue, 5 greens, 4 yellows, whatever. And I was trying to use all those colors to get to the um, look that I wanted. But I very quickly realized that this is not a case where more is better. This is really less is more. And I primarily use 5 paint tubes now. It's black, white, burnt umber, which is a brown, no, maybe 6, red, blue, and a green. Oh, actually, no. Green's new. Green, and purple are new additions. But I used to use. Try to remember which hue exactly. It was a red, a blue, a yellow, the brown, and black and white. Black and white don't really count as colors. So I'm gonna go to a very limited palette, and with one of each, you should be able to basically achieve whatever you want. And from a fine arts point of view, it's got a name as to what this palette is called. The oil painters use, and it's literally black. Actually, a lot of them don't even use black, but you can't help not use black when you're doing comic book stuff. But yeah, just use those colors and get it to look. By limiting yourself to just that limited color palette and forcing yourself to get the color that you want, you're going to learn a lot more about um, color theory, all that.
So
That makes sense. That was a little bit of a tangent.
no, no, no. It's great. It's actually really cool because in my brain it sounds like you're taking a piano and you're just like leaving yourself with only 5 keys, and it's like write me a song with those 5 keys.
Yeah.
For you to do that, it's just like it doesn't even make any sense. And I imagine that there's more people like me who don't see color that way, and who can watch things like this and just be like, yeah, I need color by number, because I would not have
Yeah,
like,
but you see that? That's, if I remember correctly, that's black, red, yellow, blue, and maybe brown.
but like I would not have taken the same steps. I wouldn't have layered it. Like I need there to be a little, number by this foot that says 4, and then there to be a brush or a crayon with the number 4 on it.
Okay.
And like that's just how most people's brains work. I think it should be appreciated. Even though there's plenty of great artists out there, it shouldn't diminish the skill that it takes, like I said, to get from A to B.
And there's no really right or wrong.
Sure,
I think that's
sure,
what's
but
important. It's like,
and
just
I think
however you get there.
that's what makes it more impressive, because if there was a right or wrong, there would almost be like this manual to follow,
Yeah.
and if you didn't get there, then you just missed a step. But no, like you could get there any way you want, and so the fact that you still get there and don't take the same way as other people is unique. It makes your art unique, and it makes your efforts more impressive.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I nerd out, and I wanted to make sure that I get out of you and I get out of me that appreciation, and that other people can see that and see that there's more than just to not just judge you guys from one card to the next, or from one Instagram post to the next. That there's all this other stuff that goes into making it. Every pixel, there's a thought, there's emotion.
Mhm.
It's deliberate. So a year ago, around a year ago, you kind of like set this goal for yourself to hone your craft, to find this harmony between quality and speed, right?
It's not going very well.
I was gonna. So what have you done aside from practice? What have you done or been able to do to work towards that?
So it's I tried. I mean, one of the things, okay, you know what, maybe let's start to maybe extend the color palette. So I have to spend less time mixing, try some different techniques. Like um, used to spend a lot of time doing or doing a lot of layers of really, really washed out layers. More recently, uh, I've been trying to do more consistent layers or deeper layers, so you don't really have to build up as much. But sometimes that backfires and you go a little too dark, and then you kind of have
Means you
to
can't
start
go
going.
backwards.
Then you end up going backwards. So, I recently, kind of on the last card set and a half, so maybe within the last year, like just before the holidays, really started dabbling with the airbrush, um, which doesn't really lend itself very well to sketch cards because it's just too small. And I didn't spend a stupid amount of money on an airbrush kit. I just bought a cheap Amazon one, so I can't really do detail with it. But it does. It's just one of those things where with an airbrush, I can very quickly do a base layer of paint over something. Like by very quick, I mean it's like 10 seconds. You just go and it's done. Where if I did it with a brush, it would have taken 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let it dry, whatever. So trying to really find these little shortcuts, which will get me more or less the same, especially on the foundation phase, which at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to tell, right? So on the final piece, you won't be able to tell that, whether I did it with a brush or did it with an airbrush doesn't really matter. I also tried using markers for the base colors, like Copic or alcohol markers, which works very well, but they're too saturated for my taste, and they destroy the paper. So I'm just kind of
So
trying to mix different media or mediums.
did you set any kind of like metric, or was there a benchmark in your head where this much time to do a particular piece, where that's the goal, or is it kind of just like a feeling? Because I know you probably don't think of things so much as one piece, maybe with a commission, but you have these projects, these sets where you have to do dozens of cards at a time, and how are you measuring that progress towards that goal?
Yeah, I'm not doing a very good job at it. Like really, when I get a set or when I get a set offer or look at my schedule, I'll budget a card a day. So somebody comes in today and says, I need you to do 50 cards by the end of the month. Like, nah, forget it. It's the 6th. I can maybe do 22.
Okay.
Right. That's a number that I'm comfortable with, but maybe I'll do 2 one day and none the next. But because that's how I budget my time, I end up, having to, sometimes spend 3 hours on a card to get that one card done that one day, and sometimes less. And I've tried kind of more minimalistic techniques to speed up the process, but they don't always work out, and then it ends up taking longer.
Right.
So,
So my takeaway, which I want to make sure other people, have, people that have followed your work, um, specifically over the past year, now we mentioned this goal and kind of like overlay it, and you mentioning that you don't feel you've done a great job at finding that harmony between pumping out more work quicker, but also maintaining the quality, means that you have a commitment to quality.
yeah.
Look,
So that I mean,
it has to mean that, because you could do it quicker. Like
oh,
if
I could
it's just
100% do a
just
card.
quicker. But
Yeah,
if you look at the work that you've put out, the quality is not only like held, it's improved. So by that definition, you have, unless it's taking you longer, on average than it did a year ago, I would say that you have improved, and maybe you're being a little hard on yourself. But also, I think that it's obviously more important to the collector, to the fan, that the quality is there. And so, it again, it wouldn't be the case for everybody to make that sacrifice of time to maintain the quality. So it is appreciated in your work.
thanks. Yeah, I think that, to your point, could I do things faster? Yeah, but it's not going to give me the look that I want most of the time. Sometimes they'll be successful, but it's not always. I haven't really quite found that balance that I'm looking for. Right. I did do. I mean, one thing that I found is I did. I don't know if it's an indie set, um, or if I'm allowed to talk about it, but it's not a licensed, like IP set.
Right.
It's called Night and Day or Light and Dark or something like that, and it's really free to work on, kind of do whatever you want. And I just did animals. So what I found there is that because I'm just drawing animals from my zoo photos or my girlfriend's Instagram feed photos or whatever, like draw a squirrel or a fox or an owl, that's a lot simpler to draw and paint than a Wolverine or a Colossus or Emma Frost, because it's an animal. The symmetry doesn't need to be there. The it doesn't, from my point of view, it doesn't have to have the same necessarily refinement in the detail, and they look great. And I banged those out in no time. It's like, okay, well, if I do puppies and kittens, I could probably get the quality level that I want a lot faster, but the subject matter is not quite as necessarily as appealing.
Right.
So, gotta, yeah, there's a lot that goes into which aspects of the process will eat up the time. And I'm constantly looking at other artists and process, and I'm a big process junkie. You can see based on the stuff that I post, I really like to see how people get to the final result versus the final result as a whole. As much as I appreciate the aesthetic and the visual of it, like a great painting, great drawing, whatever,
Right.
I always like to watch the process because it helps me understand the thought process and the trouble shooting or the problem solving stage as to how, or try to understand what decision the artist has made to get there. And from there, you could probably extrapolate some shortcuts or some methods to maybe speed up the process. I gotta say, I watched recently Dave DeVries, um, huge or influence on my decision to use paints, but also from the style, and a big fan of his aesthetic. But he has 2 videos on YouTube that, I mean, he's got a lot of videos, but it's him painting a zombie Joker. It's a 2-part video that's maybe in a classroom. I don't know if you've seen it. If not, I'll drop you the link. It's great. That's probably one of the most educational things I've seen in a very long time. And it not really focused as to how around the Joker, because it really doesn't matter what he's painting. or the choice of materials in terms of brand. He's just like, I'm going to use this pencil because this pencil is sharp, or I'm going to use this paint, or I'm going to do this. And I'm not going to go into the whole lesson, but it was extremely educational, and I was able to pick up some tips from there that I didn't really apply into cards, but in some of the larger things I've done recently, really leaning into those techniques in that process.
You mentioned Dave. He's got such a great style. Obviously, been a fan of his since the '90s. Um, he does the monster thing so well, where I like it. Like that's and as a an art dummy, that's like my takeaway is that like he just draws monsters and anything he draws, especially like villains like the Sabretooth from '95, it the Nightcrawler is one and the Nightcrawler I think is the most impressive, and I don't have an image of it ready, but it's a monster. It's a DeVries, but it's got this elegance because he's got him like mid phase, and he's got like the his like teleport, almost trail or steam behind
Yeah.
him. It's so cool. I can see the DeVries. Obviously, I see the Juiceco and the Granov, all kind of like melding together in your style. Now, in terms of so you mentioned that whole improving honing your craft thing is like a short-term goal. Now you have this long-term goal. You've said that you would really like to be on printed cards on the commercial.
Yeah, and I was talking to Warner and Gordon and Jay Fife about it on a stream a couple weeks ago. I think somebody like, oh, I think Gordon Will said, would you rather work on Fleer Ultra or Masterpieces? And he said, man, I'll do a Chef Boyardee label. Just so
Right.
give me a printed job, right? And the reason I'll say is like I still do this as a hobby, so it's
Right.
kind of more for self-enrichment, and it's not really a job for me, right? Like if you know I never got another sketch card agreement come in or offer come in, I mean, kind of suck, but it's fine, right? I'll still draw and paint and do my
Right.
thing. But just because it's something I do for myself. But if I can take that and make it commercially viable, right? If I could do covers and not paint and draw evenings and weekends, but do it during the 9 to 5, during the studio time,
Sure.
that's a different story because now it becomes part of the actual job. So that's, I mean, if anybody's watching and they want to throw me a cover.
So
No, I did do a cover. I think the book's coming out next month.
really,
Yeah, I did a variant cover for Roadkill Rampage Volume 2, which is Rodney Fike, who's also he doesn't really do upper deck sketch cards anymore, but he did a few sets. That's his IP, and he's just releasing the second book, and he kindly approached me to do a cover for him. So that was my first cover. So that'll be coming out soon. I don't know the
all
exact
right.
date, but that's coming out soon.
All right. Well, we'll post some links for that in the description. Um, so, and obviously, anybody could appreciate that answer. As far as the professional benefits of doing commercial art and getting something, working on something that's printed and not having to do these one-on-ones ad infinitum. But creatively, what kind of opportunities does doing pieces like that, let's just say within the Marvel realm, afford you that maybe you don't have the time or ability to do, whether it's the size or the amount of time that you would be able to kind of explore with, like I just have to do this one painting and it's going to be a card or a cover.
Oh, just working bigger?
Yeah.
It's working bigger. Oh my God. It's painful to work on a card like painting. And I'll get in my own head and be like, why am I doing these with paint? Why don't I just get some markers or some pencils and do them down? It's like, well, I want to do these in paint and I want to keep on getting better with paint, but it's really hard to get a lot of detail at the 2.5 by 3.5 size. So I've been Recently, I've done some larger things. I've been approached to do some larger commissions with people. I did some sketch covers are starting to come in. Something that I always want to do is kind of work at the 5x7 size, but it just affords a lot more detail, a lot more real estate to work with. So, yeah, I mean, if you're doing a cover that's going like that's your comic book cover that's going to print at that 6x7 1/4, you're doing an 11x17 or 12x19 piece that's going to get scaled down.
Right.
So, one, it's lets you work bigger, so you're not like you know carving a grain of rice. You can also do a lot more in the frame. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing that I know, I kind of the feedback that I had from artists for myself is like you don't really do backgrounds. And for the longest time, I didn't do backgrounds because, well, on the time, and it's like I can't really do much in that background with the paint. So I did kind of start doing more texture stuff, colored backgrounds, just so it's not floating on white. Even though I do like the character floating on white aesthetic,
Right.
but the feedback I had is that most collectors aren't crazy about it. So, all right, well, let's put some colors in there. But working larger, you could do a tree, I could do a car, I can do a street scene, versus just try to get something in there.
Yeah. So obviously, like backgrounds, multiple characters,
Multiple
or
characters, full
more
figures.
more of a right, more of a
Yeah,
character.
yeah.
Um, and so I'm excited to be able to see your work, explore that space, because as much as you're limited, like the collectors and the fans, we're limited too because we
Right.
like it, but it's like we're looking at your ability through this keyhole,
Mhm.
and and we want to like open the door. So we want it as much as you want it. So I hope anybody who has the ability or influence to make that happen can help see that to fruition, because that would be really cool to see on like a full size painting, um, or an actual like a Marvel variant cover. Oh man, don't even get me started. Signed and graded, first copy, coming to watch me open. Um, so we mentioned earlier on, you started doing these live drawings, and that's just one of the ways that the pandemic has kind of benefited you as an artist. Obviously, the hobby, was benefited by the economy of collecting anything, right? So the
Yeah.
rising tide raises all ships. You felt that effect as much as anybody, but you kind of like took advantage of it with these not, and I don't mean in a negative way, but you capitalized on it, with these live drawings and then the Facebook groups, and so just can you talk about some of the ways that the pandemic has actually expanded your influence and created all these connections and opportunities for you?
So, I mean, the one of the few good things that came out of the pandemic is that it gave a lot of people a lot of free time, right? And everybody decided to, how are you going to spend that time? Like, what are you going to do with all that extra time? Some people drink more, some people watch TV, some people work out all the time. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to give me the opportunity to paint more and draw more. And that was, I mean, I mentioned before a reason why I was able to put in the time that I put into the MM20 sketches. Because if it was under normal circumstances, there's no way I would have been able to put, and I think it was like 300 hours that I did the math on those cards. Um, it's just because what else was I going to do, right? Can't go anywhere, can't do anything else. And being stuck, not being able to do anything else, and having the technology, and I saw other people streaming. I was like, oh, sure, I'm going to stream too. And I saw that other artists wanted to hop on and do it, and it was a great way to connect and get closer to the community and other artists without actually meeting them. And I imagine that's kind of, I've never done a con because I've never really been in that space, but I imagine that's what a con's like, right? You're sitting at a table and you're working, and people come in and you chat and you shoot the shit, and maybe you do something for them. Maybe they're just talking about the latest episode of whatever it was, and you just talk. And the thing that the reason why I stream, I usually on Sundays I'll stream, whether anyone's watching or not, because most people aren't online at 11 a.m. on Sunday, is because it helps me focus. I'm going to sit down with an audience of potentially one, um, but at least you're doing a task and you're not going to turn on Netflix and watch something or go down a rabbit hole on YouTube. You kind of gets you focused and you just do what you need to do.
And so you've also like been able to form these relationships with these other artists
Yeah,
that you might not have. And I think it's an interesting parallel that you know referred to. That it's kind of like a mini con that you put on in a way that we could all just walk up to your table and watch you working, and you've had over a dozen different artists appear, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, and it's great to hear your interactions, to see the contrasting styles, each person's process. So it's definitely something that you've given to us, and that's very cool. And you plan to continue doing that, right?
yeah, I'll keep on doing it as long as I have the time, right?
So one of the few questions that I'm going to ask you that I am asking more or less everybody, uh, and I just feel like I have to because everybody's answer is unique, and it's got to be a problem for everybody. Is as a sketch card artist with these demands, to produce the amount of cards and the amount of time, and then it's like before you know it, there's another batch of cards that's on your doorstep for another set that you can't talk about or can't tell me about, but you tell me about off camera, and we'll talk about it, and I won't tell anybody, and I'll swear to secrecy. Um, that that you're challenged to keep producing original, unique pieces in this confined space where you're already limited, right? Your options of what you could put are already limited. They're even more limited by Upper Deck, by Disney, by the the Mouse Gang, and they you can't draw these characters, you can't draw them this way, you can't draw them like this, and so how do you take on that challenge of what am I going to put on this card that I haven't already done and people are going to like?
Just do your best, right? And one thing that in the last year or so, I said part of that whole goal of time and quality is that do the best you can. That's what I'm saying. Like, do the best you can. A lot of times I'll end up doing, not a lot of times, but sometimes I'll be like, I'll pull out a card, and especially if it's a character specific card, like you got a set that has an assigned character, and like Beta Ray Bill. I've never drawn Beta Ray Bill. I have zero interest personally to draw Beta Ray Bill, but came up, I got to draw Beta Ray Bill. And in cases like that, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do an homage. I'm not going to try to figure out how this character works. I'm just going to do an homage, look up a cover on Google or a panel that's iconic for the character, draw it and paint it, and just move on, right? Because especially with, and you and I talked about this, like part of my process or part of the way actually part of the process and the way I look at the characters, like I need to understand how the character works. With the whole Juggernaut conversation, which I don't understand how that fish bowl fits on the head, so I don't really draw the Juggernaut. I need to understand what the character is, and if you look at something like Beta Ray Bill, that skeleton, like, is it a horse? It is a goat. Why does he have skin on his arms, but he doesn't have skin on it? Like, why are his teeth sticking out? I don't understand it. So I could spend time and do a bunch of sketches, understanding and getting intimate with the biology of the character. But then I got to do 50 cards in the next 50 days, or I'll just first appearance Beta Ray Bill. Okay, redo it, slap some paint on it, moving on. Something just gotta move through. And I know certain poses, there's common poses and common looks that myself and other artists will repeat, but not on purpose. It's just so common, like
Right.
no way not to repeat it. But every one of them is going to look different because the lighting's different, or the color's different, or you've matured as a as a creative, you have different techniques, different mediums, different things applied to it.
I mean, and to just think about, the catalog of Marvel characters is obviously deep enough that you could make do for a while, but at some point, I feel like I've heard Warner say it, like, I've done 100 Spider-Mans.
Yep.
How am I going to do Spider-Man different? Like, or like, that's not only different from anybody else's, whether it's the pose or the costume, but like that's different from the last 99 that I did. So, and you've got to do a Spider-Man, right? It's Spider-Man. Like, have you done? I mean, in terms of the top characters, you feel like there's marks that you have to hit, right? Like, I got to do a Spider-Man. Maybe I got to do this. And at some point, like that challenge, it's like, I don't know how you do it. I mean, do you keep uh, pictures or references of copies of ones that you've done to make sure that it's like
Mhm.
not too similar, or do you kind of just like go with it?
I just go with it most of the time.
Yeah,
I'll just go with it. I mean, Spider Man. I don't like doing Spider Man, but I'll do Spider Man. I don't like doing Iron Man, and I'll do Iron Man very seldomly.
right.
Just too much shiny, right? Though I have no problem doing Colossus for some reason. Um, yeah, I don't know. It just kind of depends on how I feel, I guess, right? Um, Sometimes I like it when you get a set and it's got pre-assigned characters because it takes that, who am I going to draw on this card out of the equation? But then sometimes you're like it's Beta Ray Bill. I don't know how to draw Beta Ray Bill. Or, how do you draw? There's certain characters that really there's only a certain way to properly portray them without just the common look.
Right.
Like, and it's funny because I did for X-Men Metal, I did a variant of Magneto, the white costume with no helmet.
Yes.
Don't draw Magneto with no helmet. That's not Magneto. That's some dude with long hair that's floating around. Right? Like, there's certain characters that they have certain aesthetics or certain components of the costume that if you draw them without him, it doesn't really define them anymore. But yeah, just do the best. Just do the best you can, and as much as we all like to put out the best work, and Warner said it best, they can't all be bangers. There's
So
always going to be a variety in the quality in any set from any artist.
just in terms of the characters, when you start a new set, do you kind of map that out first, or no? It's
No,
just from one card to the next.
just from one card to the next. I try to do the assembly line thing. Doesn't work
Right.
for me
Right. Right.
because once I get in kind of in the zone of something, I'll just work on it till I run out of time.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's another, just another strand in like the this rope of how your way of doing it, all the way from before I even touch paper to the time I package it, is completely unique and different from somebody else's, and the value in having this interaction and learning this experience, because it I could do this 100 times with 100 different people, and there's not going to be any two that are alike, because
no,
at some point along the way, people are going to take a different path to get to the same place, and that's what's so cool and unique. That's why I wanted to do this. Your journey, we've talked about your journey of becoming a professional artist, has been so unique, right? That in terms of your specific experience, there's probably not much takeaway to lend to other people, but like in terms of like the like what can you take away, because obviously no one's going to have your same experience. Yours, walking away from art for 10 years, it's insane. But what can you take away from your experience that might benefit somebody else who's interested in art at any phase in their life?
I and I think we had this conversation. I'm a firm believer that anybody can produce art. Um, I think that talent is like whether it's creative talent or physical talent for sports or for math or whatever it is. Talent is just um, a bonus, right? Meaning that, and I think I used this analogy in the stream before. It's drawing is the same as working out, right? You can take two people with this, or art is the same as working out. You can get two people that had no previous art training or experience, or two people that had no professional, let's call bodybuilding, like bodybuilding experience. Give them the exact same opportunities and have them follow a routine. They will both develop. Now, where talent comes into play, I think, is how fast you develop. If you use bodybuilding example, people who have certain genetic aspects that are going to build muscle faster, or they have that more kind of Dorito shape, that Captain America Dorito shape natural physique, they're going to develop at a faster rate. But take you and a random guy off the street that's got the same build as you, put you in the gym 6 hours a day for the next 6 months. In 6 months, you're both going to be ripped. One of them might be, more defined or not, but you're both going to be in insane physical shape. And I think it's the same thing with art, right? Regardless of how old you are, regardless of, I can't draw a stick person or not, just start doing it. Put in the time and look at your progress over time, right? I can look at the stuff that I did in 2017 on Premiere, the stuff that I did on Black Panther, the stuff that I did in Masterpieces in 2020, and look at the stuff that I'm producing now. And even if I were, and for a lot of things, I still have the preliminary sketches, because originally I used to do them on paper and then transfer them over to the cards. I don't do that anymore for sets. I could still take that original prelim, transfer it to a card, and redo it again now, and I'm going to see a significant improvement in technique, right? Even if I'm using the original as a reference, I'm going to handle it differently, and I'm probably going to get better blends. I'm going to get more definition. I'm going to get stronger saturation. It's going to look better, and that just comes in from putting in the time. And I had this conversation with some collectors where it's like, do you really, if you get a set that comes in, do you really do whatever you can to get that set done? Right? Are you going to make those 20 cards, 30 cards, 50 cards, whatever it is? Or are you going to do the best stuff that you can within the allotted time? And you can take either way. You can say, I'm going to spend the time to get as many as I can done. And if it's half of them, it's half of them. You're going to probably produce better quality than just powering through it and trying to plow through just to hit that 20 deadline, which, there's an upside and downside to either approach. If you do 10 cards instead of 20, you only get 1 AP. But, you have 10 better quality, in my opinion, cards then.
So have you done that before? Taken one of your old prelims and done like this 5-year challenge where you tried to redo it? Because I think that would be really cool to see.
I did. I can't remember what set it was. I did an Ultron, which I think I did in Premiere 17, and I redid him in Avengers, maybe. Where I had the prelim and I just redid it because I don't like the way I rendered him originally. It just didn't come out the way I wanted, so I redid him.
Redid him for what?
I think maybe Avengers.
I don't know if you're supposed to say that. Oh, Infinity War.
Infinity War. Yeah, no, Avengers, Infinity War, or Endgame, one of those.
Okay.
Yeah,
still, like that was still early for you. So I mean, like now it would be, maybe even do that again, and you could hold the 3 together. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe do it again on a future set. But part of it is also just because of my change of medium. Because if you look at Premiere 17, I think it's primarily just like ink, like black lines and maybe watercolor, some light acrylics, and just by not using watercolor anymore, just getting the different medium, get the different coverage and and saturation of paint, is just going to give it a different look.
Right. So we're getting to the end here, and this is the part where old fans, new fans are going to be interested in what kind of commissions are you taking, what sizes, and
sketch cards. Right now, I'm at a place where for APs, there's a waiting list because I have more people waiting for APs that actually have APs coming.
Okay.
Non-licensed stuff, yeah. sketch covers, larger stuff. I mentioned a couple times I work a little slow, so there is a potentially substantial wait time,
Okay.
but hopefully it's worth it. But if anyone wants something, reach out. We'll talk, and I'll let you know kind of timing
So,
we're looking at.
as far as the sketch cards, the APs, what ballpark? What kind of waiting? What's your waiting list like?
Right now, really, you're probably looking fall of this year,
Fall. Okay.
if assuming I get cards.
Yeah, just so people have an idea.
Yeah,
And then obviously, you expect that to only move back further as you know, like if someone wants an AP from you on a sketch card, get your name on the list now
yeah. But so
because
the way I do is I
it,
literally have a list. I really have
right,
an Excel spreadsheet, and when somebody reaches out and says I want to go on your list, I put your name down and I work my way through. And as I get close to the next person, I'll reach out and says, "Hey, your turn's up. It's coming. What do you want? This is what I have, and do
right. So if they wait 3 months, that fall is going to become winter.
it." Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Great. Well, we're gonna post so your social media accounts. It's very easy. It's Andrei Studios, but we're
yeah.
still gonna post the links in the description. And anybody is strongly encouraged to check out Dre's work, to follow him, to get some work commissioned by him. If you collect cards, you could find him in all the upcoming sets. And Dre, I want to thank you so much for coming. I,
Pleasure.
I really, like I said, this is as much as a fan having you on as it was a friend and someone that I talk to regularly. So I really appreciate it. What you do for this, we've done for this show and the community. Being there, being a cool artist, bringing something different that we get to enjoy. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on. And don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, hit that notification bell at the bottom. And for more great box opening content, interviews with artists, and some great stuff, check out watchmeopen.com.
Wow, I didn't even give that to him. That's not even written down. He just off the cuff. Thank you, Dre. Thank you, everyone. Please, like you said, do all that, and I hope you all have a great week and have a very happy collecting.